The Moonlit Garden. Chapter 1. The Gate That Wasn't There. Elena had grown tired of city noise, not just the kind that rattled windows or echoed off tall buildings, but the kind that buzzed quietly in her chest and never let her rest. Her days were a blur of notifications, meetings, and to-do lists that never seemed to end. The constant motion wore on her like waves against stone. She found herself longing for silence, not just around her, but inside her. After one particularly difficult week, Elena made a decision that surprised even herself. She left the city behind and moved into a small, ivy-covered cottage nestled in a forgotten neighborhood on the edge of town. The place had been listed as charming, but in need of love. It was surrounded by tall trees and bordered by an old iron fence. The garden was wild and unkempt, but Elena liked it that way. It reminded her of the freedom she once felt as a child running barefoot through summer fields. The cottage was quiet. There was no traffic outside her window, no neon signs blinking into her room at night, just the sound of birds during the day and crickets at night. And though she still worked remotely, answering emails and attending virtual meetings, the pressure in her chest began to ease. One night, under the soft glow of a full golden moon, Elena couldn't sleep. Her mind wasn't racing exactly, just humming, lightly buzzing with leftover thoughts. She slipped out of bed, wrapped herself in a soft shawl, and stepped into the backyard. The garden was glowing faintly in the moonlight, and the air smelled sweet with dew and wild lavender. That's when she saw it. A gate. It stood at the far end of the yard, half concealed by vines and shadow. Elena was certain it hadn't been there before. She walked toward it slowly, curiosity stirring in her belly. The gate was wrought iron, its surface etched with strange, beautiful carvings: moons, leaves, stars, and tiny animal prints. The ivy curled protectively around it, as if trying to keep it hidden. As Elena reached out, the gate swung open with a soft groan. She stepped through without hesitation. What lay beyond took her breath away. A garden stretched before her, but it wasn't like the wild one she knew. This one shimmered with silver light. Flowers glowed gently, casting halos onto the soft, mossy path. The air was warmer, richer, filled with scents she couldn't name but somehow remembered. Every plant leaned slightly toward her, as if greeting her with a bow. The petals of each bloom seemed to whisper secrets she couldn't quite hear. She took a few tentative steps forward. The path curved, guiding her deeper into this moonlit dream. Then a soft voice drifted to her ears. Elena. She turned. A fox stood just beyond a flowering bush. Its fur shimmered like starlight, and its eyes held the calm of still water. It stepped forward with grace and spoke again. "I'm Aura," said the fox. "You found the moonlit garden." Elena blinked. The world around her seemed to hold its breath. She felt no fear, only awe. "Why am I here?" she whispered. Aura smiled, her voice as soft as wind through leaves. "Because your heart remembered where to look." Chapter 2. Whispers of the Bloom. The next night the moon rose again, slightly smaller but still bright and golden. Elena didn't question it this time. As the stars blinked awake above her, she stepped outside, drawn once more to the gate. It opened just as it had the night before, with a soft groan that felt more like a sigh. She crossed the threshold into a world she now knew had always been waiting. The path was different tonight. Where lavender and soft grasses had guided her the night before, now tall blooms lined her way. Bell-shaped flowers in shades of blue, rose and gold, shimmered faintly as she passed. They swayed not with the breeze, but with her presence, as if they remembered her. Each flower whispered softly, not in words, but in warm, familiar emotions. She felt laughter, heard echoes of lullabies, tasted the sweetness of long-forgotten dreams. The whispers wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. Aura met her by a tall moonvine archway that hadn't been there before. "Why do the flowers whisper?" Elena asked. "Because they remember," Aura replied. "They carry echoes of what we leave behind. Memories, hopes, forgotten feelings. The garden holds them, gently, until we're ready to hear." They walked together until they reached a small clearing. A stone bench sat beneath a glowing tree, its leaves silver and gently fluttering. Seated on the bench was an elderly man with kind eyes and a slow, peaceful smile. "This is Theo," said Aura. Theo looked up and patted the bench beside him. "Been a while since someone new came to sit with me. Come on. Gardens are best enjoyed with company." Elena sat beside him, unsure what to say. Theo didn't seem to mind. For a while they simply listened. The leaves rustled like whispers. A small stream nearby gurgled softly. Flowers swayed in a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. "I used to run all the time," Theo said eventually. "Not with my legs, with my mind. Always thinking, planning, worrying. Thought if I slowed down, I'd miss something. Turns out I missed everything by not slowing down." He gestured to a nearby bloom, a glowing hibiscus with golden edges. "That one remembers the day I sat in the sun with my wife, just being quiet together. I was too busy to appreciate it then, but the garden remembered for me." Elena felt a tug in her chest. She thought of her own forgotten moments. Quiet mornings with her mother, childhood daydreams, her first dance in the rain. As she remembered, a tulip at her feet turned toward her. Its petals fluttered, and it whispered her name. "Elena." Her eyes welled with tears, not of sadness, but of remembering, of returning. Aura curled beside her, tail tucked neatly. "You're healing," she said softly. Elena leaned back, closed her eyes, and let the garden hold her. She was not lost. She had simply forgotten the way, and now she was finding her way back. Chapter 3. Night Pond. The third night came quietly. The sky wore a silken indigo robe, scattered with stars like tiny lanterns flickering from the heavens. Elena had waited all day for nightfall, not with impatience, but with a quiet yearning she didn't fully understand. She stepped outside as soon as the moon peeked over the treetops. The gate opened at her touch now, like an old friend inviting her in. The moment she crossed the threshold, her breath slowed, her shoulders dropped. The noise of the world, emails, regrets, worries, dissolved behind her. Aura waited by a path Elena hadn't seen before. "This way," the fox said, her voice like wind brushing through reeds. The path was narrow, lined with bluebells that glowed faintly with each step Elena took. She noticed how they responded to her movement, almost like they were guiding her. The air smelled like lilac and something older, something like peace. They walked in silence, but it wasn't empty. It was full of the quiet kind of companionship, the kind that says "I see you," without needing to say anything at all. Eventually the path opened into a clearing. At its center sat a wide, still pond, the surface so smooth it looked like a mirror laid flat against the earth. The moon hung just above it, casting a silver ribbon of light that reached all the way to the shore. Elena sat down without being asked. Aura lay beside her, her silver tail curling around her paws. "This is the place of reflection," Aura whispered. "Many who visit the garden find their way here eventually. Few come ready. You are." Elena leaned forward, peering into the water. At first she saw only her own face, softened by the moonlight, her eyes more open, more alive than they'd been in years. Then the water began to shift. Ripples moved outward, though no wind stirred, and in those ripples she saw herself, but not the version she presented to the world. She saw a little girl dancing barefoot in the rain, spinning in circles until she fell, laughing. She saw a teenager painting on her bedroom wall because the canvas was too small for her dreams. She saw herself at 20, clutching a notebook to her chest, reciting poems she never let anyone read. Elena gasped softly. "I forgot her." "No," Aura said gently. "You buried her." But the roots remained. Tears welled in Elena's eyes, but they didn't fall. They shimmered there, soft as stars. "What happened to her?" she whispered. "You gave her up for what you thought the world needed. Structure, success, approval, but she's still in you." Elena watched the ripples change again. Now she saw herself in her office, hunched over a laptop, surrounded by papers and deadlines that meant less and less. The contrast was sharp, almost painful. And then, the ripples calmed, the water stilled. She saw herself now, sitting at the edge of the pond, beside a silver fox, in a garden that lived and breathed and remembered. Whole, wounded, healing. And somehow, okay. Aura touched her paw to Elena's hand. "You don't have to become anything. You already are. You've simply forgotten how to be." Elena smiled through a trembling breath. "I want to remember." "You are," Aura replied. "Every time you choose stillness. Every time you breathe deeply. Every time you come back." They sat for a long while, saying nothing, just watching the moon ripple across the water, soft, slow, and eternal. Chapter 4. What You Carry Home. On the fourth night, Elena knew it would be the last for a while. Not forever, but for now. The moon had begun to wane, its once bright face now a silver crescent, tilted as if listening. The garden shimmered differently tonight, less like a dream, and more like a memory being gently tucked away. When she stepped through the gate, it welcomed her with the soft sigh of leaves and the hush of petals closing for sleep. Aura stood waiting at the heart of the garden, where the paths converged beneath a great willow tree, its long branches swaying even without wind. "Come," Aura said. "Tonight is not for wandering. Tonight is for choosing." Elena followed her to a circle of stones, each one carved with delicate symbols: a quill, a seed, a teacup, a door. She knelt beside them, tracing the symbols with her fingers. "What is this place?" she asked. "A place to remember, and to leave behind." Elena closed her eyes. Images drifted through her. Faces, voices, moments she'd thought were lost. Her grandmother humming while she braided Elena's hair. The feel of dirt under her nails in the garden she abandoned in college. The first poem she ever wrote. The dream she had once of opening a bookstore where people came not for books alone, but for belonging. She opened her eyes. "I let go of so many pieces," she said softly. Aura sat beside her. "They are not gone. They are here. They've been waiting." Elena took a deep breath and touched one of the stones, the one shaped like a seed. The stone pulsed with warmth, and a tiny sprout appeared, glowing with the faintest golden light. "It's yours," Aura said, "to take with you. A reminder." Elena cradled it in her hands. The seed was warm and alive. "And if I forget again?" Aura smiled. "Then plant it. Let it grow. And when the time is right, the garden will return." They walked back to the gate together. The flowers, now dimly lit, bowed slightly as she passed. The bluebells gave off one last soft hum. Even the willow seemed to lean forward, as if offering a farewell embrace. At the gate, Aura turned to her. "You've changed," the fox said. "But more than that, you've remembered." Elena nodded. "I don't know if I'm ready to face everything waiting for me out there." "You don't have to face everything," Aura replied. "Just take one breath, one step, carry the stillness with you. Elena hesitated. Then she stepped through. Epilogue. The cottage was just as she left it. Quiet, dim, a little dusty. But something had shifted. Her plants looked greener, the windows clearer, the world outside the glass softer. Elena placed the seed on her bedside table.
And when she woke the next morning, something small had